quiet it down a little bit. We're gonna start our next session. So you guys had a practice round before we started lunch, doing a very quick selfie. But I do notice that there are some seats not filled yet. So if you can move closer, I want to make sure I can get all of your beautiful faces in here. Come on and join us. Don't be shy. Alrighty, so I want to make sure I can encapsulate this one for myself. I'm going to take a selfie with you guys, if you don't mind, on this really cool GoPro that I'm trying to figure out how to use right now. So I am going to turn this around real quick, and if we can all get a little excitement going, some applause, some cheering for all of you.
I know, I just had
Thank you for coming out.
No, I really want to also catch up with you and see what's going on. I still want to go to school.
One more time, let's hear for everybody here. A round of applause for all of yourselves.
Yeah, but they're back. But no, I really want to go. Yeah.
All right, so now I am ready
Everything's
for
going well
session 3, the journey to self-healing. Our next 4 speakers have unfortunately faced some challenges, emotionally, mentally, and physically. But they've come out much stronger from it. We'll learn about their road to healing and what they learned along the way. And as promised, we are kicking off this session with another Fireside Chat. This time with current Miss Imagine Talks and Miss Entrepreneur, Sheila Sun. Sheila was born and raised in China, but moved to the US to pursue a master's in finance from George Washington University, and has a career in the life insurance industry. She'll be chatting with Frances about her life lessons learned that have led her to her titles in the Miss Asian Global pageant. Let's welcome Sheila Sun.
Did you guys get a chance to get enough food and drink?
Yeah.
Alright, good. I need to know what it tastes like because I think I just looked at food right now. But we are here for the third part of the talk, which is essentially this is healing and personal healing, personal growth. I'm here with Sheila Sun, and she is our current Miss Imagine Talks and also Miss Entrepreneurship. The thing about Sheila is that I don't think many people actually know much about her story, and it's a really powerful, really moving story that I got a chance to learn about. So I'm hoping today we can share a little about that with all of you as well. So Sheila, your talk, I remember your platform was a little bit about the whole concept of loneliness during your interview, right? Mm-hmm. And that's really interesting that you talked about loneliness because you came from that generation, China, which basically had a one-child policy, right?
Yes.
And I can't even imagine what it's like to grow up in an entire generation where everyone around you doesn't have the concept of brothers or sisters, right? So, as someone who actually grew up in that type of environment, what did that actually have in terms of effect with your relationship with your parents and the family as an only child of the entire generation like that?
Yeah, I mean, being the only child definitely has a lot of advantages, like resource-wise. We don't need to fight toys or snacks with siblings all the time, and then we can go to college, finish master without a lot of a student loan on our shoulder. So I didn't realize I was so blessed until I came to States, because everybody's kind of similar to me when I grow up. And then I see a lot of people, they're already graduated and they're still working to pay off their student loan. I was like, oh, I was so lucky and I didn't even realize that. So yeah, for sure, there's a lot of good things about it. But growing up without a sibling, I mean, I always envy those kids when they have a sister or brother. Well, for minority race, you're allowed to have a second kid in mainland. So yeah, it's good to be having someone so close to you and then share experience and things together. That intimacy is something I was longed for a long time. So yeah.
How did it have an effect on your relationship with your parents, being an only child, in terms of you were literally the only focus they had?
Yeah. Well, I am the only child, but I was still a little bit neglected, even so, because people in 30s, 40s back in China, they have to support for 2 generations. like their parents, like, when they're older, they need financial support, and then kids as well. So they're like work their ass off so hard every day to try to provide. So yeah, so I don't have much time to spend with them. Like my father's not around, my mom's always working. I was like living in different relatives' house when I was little. So yeah, I mean, I kind of like, I know they love me a lot, but they don't really say it. There's no physical affection. Yeah, so that's something I wanted growing up with people. So when I'm with my friends, I'll be like really like hugging them all the time because that's something I really wanted. Yeah.
That's an interesting point because you're looking at a generation where there were no siblings, and yet the whole culture was focused around a certain face where you cannot and should not, you should have a certain distance between you and your child. And I can only imagine what that would be like growing up where you have that almost double reinforcement of isolation. And you also shared a lot about how you yourself was somewhat more of an introvert to begin with on top of that. So you were an introvert to begin with, you had no siblings, you came from a culture that put an arm distance because of the authoritarian, I guess, culture, right? What role did that play with your friends then? You said that you became close to your friends.
They're my parents.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
Well, I don't like my parents, especially my father, that like they're like really traditional, like they only do things for you, like they might make money for the household, but they don't really like tell you they love you, like not nearly enough. So I used to like trying to grab my hand, like my father's hand, but then he feels so awkward and so unnatural. He will like push down my finger, each by each, but in slow motion, as if like it hurt my feeling a little less. And he does it all the time. I was trying to be close to him, but it just never worked. So one day I just stopped trying, and then, so in my home, I would keep my door shut of my bedroom like 24/7. Like, I just want to be with myself. So I'm the only one that makes me feel like comfortable. And I guess that's a little sad, yeah. But yeah, we're working on it now. Like, I grow up a lot, and now I realize I need to tell him first. Like, I need to show him first. So you need to like let them know. Parents need education from kids too. Yeah, because we see a lot of new stuff. We need to let them know. Upgrade. Yeah.
Parents 2.0, very good. So what was the relationship with your friends as you're growing up in high school and middle school?
Yeah.
How did that affect your peer relationships?
I don't get comfortable around people in general. I wonder if like most introverts feel that way or not. I'm not sure. But like I always trying to fit in. I'm trying like really hard, but I still feel like really uptight and nervous around people. But then I would kind of have this social switch. If I need to be like talking to people and be polite or just hang out, I would turn it on. And I can look like someone who's like extroverted, is that how you say it? Yeah. But then when I like hang out with people, I have like wear off my energy already. I need to go back and then charge myself and then just be rest from hanging out with people. So yeah.
So, and you also shared a little bit with me, and if we can talk a little about it, there was a point in college where it got so hard and so exhausting and draining that it almost pushed you to the point where you were in a very dark place for a while.
Yeah, college is hard. Like, I think kids are mean a lot of times. Like, they don't really, like, because when we were young, we don't really understand how to respect people yet. So, when you like, I mean, college was really hard for me. I have to move out, because when I was joining a lot of student groups, and then, I don't know if people might get jealous of you, or you said something, you don't mean it, but like, I can be pretty blunt a lot of times, that pisses people off. So I got to the point that I have like pretty bad reputation, and I don't really know how to say no to people. Like, I don't know how to reject people, because I'm a completely pushover most times. So like I would go out with people like not date, but like if guy asked me to go out with them, I would go. But most times simply because I don't want to say no to hurt their feelings. But then to a lot of people, it seems like, I just date anybody or whatever. So it got to the point it's pretty bad, and then I was really stressed. I had to move out from my dorm, and then live by myself for a whole year without any social connection whatsoever. It was like maybe a little bit. I was a little bit depressed, I think, just eating all the time and then living upside down life and then not talking to anybody. Maybe even a little suicidal. I'm not sure, but it was bad time. But yeah, it taught me a lot. The pain taught you a lot. Yeah.
So basically also being somewhat introverted and also having that difficulty to connect with people, but then going to the super extreme of just completely isolating yourself, that's also to the point where it was just really bad as well too, right? You were looking for that balance, right?
Yes.
So if I'm not mistaken, you also, somewhere along the lines, started finding a way to connect with people through entertainment and dance and modeling. Tell me about this. When did it actually start?
I think maybe start from college. That's captain. So, yeah. Start in the group, like I always have this like full of emotion that because I always push it down in my chest. Like I don't really talk to anybody about it. But then when I perform, I feel like, oh, I don't need to speak like in verbal. I can just show it with my movements and my expression. And that made me feel like I'm connecting with people in the world and then people can see me. Yeah, I enjoy attention a lot. That's why I do Photoshop all the time for pictures.
That's really cool. So a little bit of an introvert tendency, but you also had this environment where you're growing up where there was that distance. But you actually had a need, a want to connect with people.
I do very much. I just don't get comfortable while I'm doing it. Like it's hard for me, but I want it.
So what do you feel? What do you feel when you're performing with people? What kind of energy? What's your emotion? What does your heart feel like?
I think I want people to know who I am. I just don't know how to say it. Like words can be misleading sometimes, and you say something, people might not really get what you mean. But I think through eyes and looks, and then you put genuine feeling in it, and then people can feel it, and that's really like poetic, romantic. Like it feels like that to me. So that's why I wanted to do it for a career in the future, maybe. Yeah.
So like it's communication on a higher spiritual level.
Yes.
Okay. Now, how did this type of talent, this type of skill you developed, how did it affect your time in the Thinking Global?
I mean, if I always stay in China, I don't think I'm ever gonna be doing something like pageant, because I always assume being pageant you have to be like 62 and then 100 pounds. Like I'm like chubby and I'm not tall enough. I'm like, okay, that's never gonna happen. But my friends suggest me do it. Like I was started like for business purposes, like to meet more new people, like expand my network. But then, like the sister attend like the mag, they're so inspiring. Like so many of them, like they know exactly who they want to be. And then they have their own hardships, but then they overcome it. They're so confident. That's just charming to me. So I learned a lot from them.
What did you learn?
Just don't be afraid. Have more courage to pursue what you really want, I guess. Yeah. So that's why I wanted to change my career goal direction, yeah, in a way.
So as we come toward the end of this interview, what kind of message that you would want to give to other people who might be going through the same thing, being introverted a little bit, but wanting that connection with people, but not knowing how to do it? What kind of advice would you give them who are struggling and maybe even in that dark place?
Well, I think accepting who you are is something really hard. I don't know if that's for most people. It is for me. Like I will consider myself to be a nice, like energetic, that one of the popular kids, or I was trying so hard to be one of them. And I didn't realize until recently I am not. I am an introvert and I am cynical and sarcastic, but I am a different way. It's okay to be different. It's okay to be not popular. Because if you're trying to be someone you're not, you're never gonna be best at it. That's why, yeah, I wanted to be just best version of me, Sheila, not anybody else. So, yes.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's pretty much it. Thank you for sharing your story with us, Sheila.
Sheila, you are so strong for sharing your story. Thank you. And I'm excited to see her as the next rising actress. So next up, visionary Ashley Song is looking to update the school system to not just teach math and sciences, but to develop a new teaching platform to build moral judgment and confidence in children. Having experienced a difficult youth herself, Ashley is dedicated to her role as the founder and CEO of Meaningful Beginnings Daycare. She wants to be able to make a great social impact on generations to come. Please give a warm welcome to Ashley Song.
Okay. Hi guys.
I guess we're ready to go.
Should I start speaking or should I wait a little bit? Okay. I guess I can start now. Hi guys. So I guess you've heard a little introduction about me already. Nothing special. Your inner soul is what connects to everything and everyone around you. What you feel on the inside will show on the outside. See what you want as already yours, and it will be. So, why should you listen to me? You really don't need to. But I do know just a little bit something about this because of my own life experience. Through my journey, I've discovered 5 core principles that I live by. It has a lot to do with Oprah Winfrey, sorry, tongue twister. So let me share them with you. 1, to not let where you start define where you'll end up. 2, to be thankful for what you have. Having more. Focus on what you don't have, you'll never have enough. 3, to learn from your wounds and turn them into wisdom. 4, to be the driver of your life and don't let life drive you. And 5, you won't know who you are until you discover who you're not. So my story starts off pretty simple. I grew up in an extremely poor family, unfortunately not crazy rich Asians. And I remember raised in low-income housing, and I remember eating the few same things every single day, and always included oatmeal. So my mom raised me and my 4 older brothers by herself. Yes, I have 4 older brothers. I am the youngest and the only girl of the family. You can imagine how my dating life was. It's crazy. Moving forward, the reason why my mom had to raise us by herself was because my dad fell into deep substance abuse by the time that I was about 5 years old. For those of you who don't know anything about meth, it's a very addictive drug. So when he was sober, he was the best person ever. Well-spoken, he cared, he was there for us. But when he was high, that was a completely different story. He would lie and steal and abuse the family. The first time I witnessed him beating my mom, I was 6 years old. I remember I woke up to loud screams. I was like, what's going on, you know? I peeked through the door, and I saw my dad jump over to my mom, bit her on the head. He then proceeded by beating her physically over and over. And I thought, okay, that might be the end of it. No. He then dragged her body and pulled it in between the doors and started slamming the door against her body over and over and over again. I was scared, I just cried. But my dad only ended up beating them too. And then, a loud ruckus, the neighbors called the cops, and I watched as the police officers arrested my dad and strapped him to a white bed because he was considered mental. The next morning, my mom, she went and filed for divorce and a restraining order. I thought that was going to be the end of it and that I would never see my dad again. But I was so wrong. It happened probably up until my late teenage years. So the borrowing led to stealing, the lying and abusing both just got worse. Some days he'd come back normal, fine. Other days he'll come back being to a pulp. The neighborhood gangs or people that he had offended. And I remember there were loan sharks that would knock on our door every single day telling us that we better pay them back, otherwise they kill us. So this is what led me to principle number 1. Do not let where you start define where you'll end up. Although I had a dark childhood and there was lots of violence, I still didn't let that define who I am today. Here I am, still standing before you, sharing my story with you. And this is a moment in many people's lives where they only have 2 choices. Either to go down the road that they only know of, or break free from the past and start fresh. So, due to my dad's self-destructing habits, I didn't have a lot growing up. I literally had to wear hand-me-downs. A lot from my cousins, sometimes maybe from people around the neighborhood. I don't know where they found it. But I remember my brother Frank. For my first day of middle school, he got all my brothers to chip in to buy me a brand new outfit, so I didn't have to go to school wearing hand-me-downs. But the thing was, they only had enough to buy me clothes, but not shoes. So my first day of middle school, I walked through the doors with so much confidence. Like, okay, I have my brand new outfit now, I don't have to wear hand-me-downs. But I wish people told me how mean kids could be in middle school. Because my old white shoes were no longer white, they were yellow. And kids made fun of me because I didn't have anything. But even though that happened, I was okay with it because I was thankful that at least I had brand new clothes. There's people around the world that have nothing, And literally 2 months later, my brother Frank brought me to Foot Locker and said, here, we can pick out 1 pair of shoes. I saved my money. I was so happy. And that led me to principle number 2. And this is just one of many incidences. I wish that I could tell you more, but I can only speak to you for about 18 minutes. And that led me to principle number 2, which is to be thankful for what you have, and you'll always end up having more. If you focus on what you don't have, you won't have enough. I learned the value of gratitude through that experience. And because I didn't have a lot in middle school, and I was also the new girl, I was picked on severely. And let me explain to you what I mean by severely. When I walked through the school doors, I wasn't sure if I was going to end the day with emotional abuse or physical abuse. There were groups of mean girls, even some guys, that would purposely do things just to hurt me. So I would go walk down my hallway and they might shout names at me, they might throw things at me, they might even just push me against the locker for no reason. And to be honest, I really don't know what I've done to them. I never did anything. One experience that happened was when I was in 7th grade. I was sitting on a bench, just eating my lunch, and a girl came up to me, poured water all completely end of it. But no, she proceeded by physically hitting me and kicking me and beating me. And it didn't stop until the teacher came and told her to stop. And okay, I'm hair drenched, beaten, cold, didn't know what to do. But the teacher just told her to go back to school. And I never even got an apology. And nothing ever even happened to her. And I'm thinking it's because her parents were very involved with school, that they never even heard about the incident. But aside from that, let me step away from the story for a little bit. Just a year ago, I actually ran into her at a real estate event. And she came up to me and said, sorry. She said, Ashley, I'm so sorry for everything I did to you before, and, I hope that you're not holding it against me and all these things. I was like, yeah, of course not, But in my head, of course, I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. Anyways, jumping back to the story. From that incident, it taught me so much. That I need to treat people with respect, regardless of who they are and what they have. And that I will teach my children the same thing. that you have to treat people with respect and treat others the way that you want to be respected. And even though I was bullied, I never bullied others. Instead, that was one wound that occurred, and I learned from it. But one major wound that occurred was back in 2011 when I lost someone very close to me. So you guys remember Frank, right? The one who saved for my clothes, for my shoes. I lost him. So Frank, let me tell you a little bit about him. He's a great guy, bright smile. You see my smile? His smile is so much brighter, and it will light up the entire room. He's a good guy, very genuine, and always put others before himself. He was very close to getting into the Marines, but he got into a motorcycle accident that broke his entire left side of his body. And even though he was in so much pain, he was walking with a cane, he would still laugh and smile and pretend like he's okay, even though I knew he was in so much pain. But he did that because he didn't want us to worry. But because he was in so much physical pain, he had to take a lot of pain medications. So he got addicted, to the point where he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. And I remember he used to call me and tell me, Ashley, I don't know what is real anymore. What is real? What is fake? I hear voices. Did you say this to me yesterday? And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, you know. So 2011 was also when I was pregnant with my first child. I was walking through Babies R Us, shopping for my last minute things, and I received a phone call. It was my mom on the phone, and she says to me in Chinese, your brother is already dead. My heart just dropped to the floor. I had no idea what she meant by that. I was like in denial. I was like, what do you mean he's dead? What do you mean? And I just dropped everything, and I ran out the door, sped home. As I walked up the stairs, it was so quiet, so still, so sad. I just continued walking up, not sure what to expect. I see my mom, her head is down. I look at my brothers, and they all had tears in their eyes. So I knew for sure something was really wrong. So I continued walking down the hall, and I saw Frank's room. But this time, he wasn't smiling, and he wasn't there. He was laying in his bed, blue, cold, lifeless. He was gone. And that night, I watched as the medical examiners bagged up my brother's body, and dragged his body into their van. 2 weeks later, we had to bury our brother. But literally 1 week later, I gave birth to my daughter. So why I'm sharing this with you is because I learned from this wound. Even though I couldn't control how he was going to leave this world, I knew how I would be able to live out the rest of my life. And I knew to always appreciate people around me and to be thankful for everyone around me. Because you're never going to know when that would be your last time speaking to them. Okay, aside from the sadness, let me move on to something that you guys probably won't think that I would have done when I was younger. So because I didn't have a lot of friends in middle school, in my own middle school, I sought friends outside of school. And they were always considered the troublemakers. One day, they offered to pick me up. I was 13 years old. I said, okay, come pick me up, let's go for a ride, you know? And right when I sat in the car, I realized there was no key in the ignition. So what do you guys think that means? It was a stolen car, okay? And there was like 5 of us in the car. And at that moment, I was scared, and I was like, okay, maybe I shouldn't do this, maybe I shouldn't be here. But I was scared of how they would judge me, and I didn't want to share my true feelings. So I just went along with it. I just went along for the ride. And then we went to Oakland, we shopped, as we walked outside, I remember the girl driver said, wait, don't touch the car. I'm like, wait, why? Why can't I touch the car? And out of nowhere, 5 cop cars show up and shine their lights on us and toss me on the floor. Oh my gosh. At that moment, I was like, how did I get myself into this situation? Why am I here? I should just be at home in bed, but instead I'm here on the floor, cold, raining, and arrested. But that night, luckily, they let me go. They, detained us for a little bit. But my whole reason I bring this up is that this led me to principle number 4, which is to be the driver of your life. Don't let life drive you. I literally let life drive me with the female driver in the stolen car. But aside from that, when I was 17 years old, I met a man who changed my life forever. He's actually my ex-husband and also the father of my 2 children. 1 year into our relationship, his parents suggested that we get married. So I was 18 years old. And I said, okay, why not? Although I was very unsure and I knew that I didn't want this, I didn't want to let others down because I thought about them first. So even throughout the entire engagement period, and even on the day of the married day, I was very unhappy, I was very sad, and I knew I didn't want to do it. But I just thought in my head that it was too late, I can't get out of this. The invitations are sent, everybody's here, family flew in, we just gotta go and do it, 2 months later, I gave birth to our first child, and then 3 years later, I gave birth to our second child. And throughout this entire process, I just kept on going along with it, even though I knew I wasn't happy, but I just did it because I thought this is what I'm supposed to do. But when in reality, it's just that I wasn't driving my life. I was letting life drive me. You know how they say when you marry someone, you marry into their family too? That was literally what happened for me. I'm American Chinese, but their family is traditional Korean, like super traditional. So they expected me to be the best housewife, the best mom, the best everything. But I'm human. So I was expected to cook, clean, do the traditional chores. But the thing is, that's not a big problem. I'll do it regardless because I love my family. The issue was I had to do it by their time. I was not allowed to dry laundry in a regular dryer. I had to hang dry it outside in my backyard. I was not allowed to go to sleep before my mother-in-law, or else I was considered to be lazy. So I watched movies with her until she was tired. I'll cut her fruits, do everything that I was supposed to do, and then I'll go to sleep. I was not allowed to leave without telling them where I was going, otherwise I'll be in trouble. And every time I did something outside of the norm, I had to sign a contract saying that I was sorry for doing something wrong. So, you can see why it kind of drove me crazy, right? And throughout this entire time, I thought I knew who I was. I thought, okay, I definitely know that I'm this person. But truth was, I didn't realize who I was until I realized that's not who I wasn't. So that led to principle number 5, which is you won't know who you are until you discover who you are not. 2016, I said, I'm done, I can't do this anymore. And I divorced my husband, and I went to find myself again. Because I realized that I wasn't living a life for myself anymore. I started living a life for them. And I was scared to step away from it because I was scared of how others would judge me. Everybody saw me as the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect everything. But I'm far from perfect. I'm like very bad at this, okay? And so I just realized that, you know what? I don't care about what other people think anymore because the world is going to judge you no matter what you do. You just have to live your life the way that you want to. So I went and did just that. And once I did that, that was where my inner soul connected with the universe again. I found myself and I knew who I was. So now you see how I create these 5 principles. Do you remember what they were? 1, do not let where you start define where you end up. Although I started in not the best childhood, I still was able to break free from that. 2, to be thankful for what you have. You're always going to end up having more. Focus on what you don't have, never have enough. 3, to learn from your wounds, turn your wounds into wisdom. 4, to drive your life and don't let life drive you. Live to create, don't just live to exist. And 5, you won't know who you are until you discover who you're not. So now you've heard my childhood stories. You see how I went through all these challenges, but yet I'm still here standing before you, telling you that you're capable of everything that you've ever desired. But before I leave, I do want to challenge you all with one more thing, or leave you all with one more thing, is that you see how I live my life with my 5 core principles, right? Knowing, though, is not the power. Action is. So I challenge you all to go there. Find your own principles, create them, inspire the community around you. Be true and authentic to yourself. And don't worry about what other people will say or how they're going to judge you because, again, the world is always going to judge you. You're the only judge that you should ever have to answer to. Thank you so much for listening to me speak. I'm honored and definitely have the pleasure of speaking to you guys. You guys were great. Thank you.
Obviously, your story was not something that was easy to recall, especially in a room full of people. But you are a champion, and your strength is extremely admirable. I'd like for you all to meet April Yee next. April worked in the private equity industry for over 10 years, but in 2015, her life was saved by an emergency cardiothoracic surgery, which changed her complete outlook on life. This led her to pursue studies in holistic life coaching, while continuing to serve on 6 nonprofit boards. She's also passionate about writing, and in 2016, she won the ISA Scholar Award at the Women on Writing Conference. April read an incredible 48 books last year, practices aerial yoga, and is continually learning about life experiences, like what she'll be sharing today about body, boundaries, and benevolence. Please welcome April Yee.
Thank you, Melanie. In 2015, the universe realigned my life. I had been living in New York City for 3 years after jumping at the opportunity to move there when my company made the offer. I had been with this private equity firm for 7 years at that point, and I was enjoying the perks of working there. I had the means to have and do what I wanted. I felt proud of the prestige, challenge, and perceived success of my job, so I made my job my priority, chaining myself to my desk most days, working long hours, and going into the office on the weekends. I worked hard because it was the only way I knew how. For as long as I can remember, I had this strong sense of responsibility to support myself and to prove that my life was worth something. And maybe this came from being the oldest child in a Chinese American family and knowing how hard my grandparents worked as immigrants and how hard my parents worked to raise and support 3 children on their own. But when was it that I began tying my sense of self-worth and self-value to achievement, accomplishment, success, performance? My will and determination developed around these ideas, and I needed to be reliable, not let people down, shoulder the responsibility. So I pushed myself hard and expected things from myself that went above and beyond what others might expect from me. It was a way to show that, yes, I'm needed, yes, I'm worthy, and yes, I deserve to be here. I gave others the power to determine what my value was and how I felt about myself. But at what cost? The costs presented themselves the 3rd year of working in New York when my health declined. I had injured my back and was in a lot of pain, but I forced myself to keep working, feeling pressured to perform for my team as usual. But because I didn't allow myself to heal properly, that injury affected my whole body and I had less energy, and eventually I felt too depleted to keep up with the grueling pace that I'd taken on at work. And I knew that I needed to make a big change in order to take care of my health and well-being, and I also wanted to find something more creative and meaningful to do. So after 10 years with my company, I decided to quit, and it felt like standing up for myself. The costs presented themselves again a couple months after I quit my job, and when my back injury resurfaced and caused so much pain, I was in bed for most days for over a month. Even though I wasn't working at that time, I wasn't sure how to take care of myself, and after a month, when my back started to feel better, I started to feel weaker, and I developed a constant cough. It wasn't until I was back in San Francisco for what I thought would be a 2-week vacation where my symptoms got worse, and all I could do was lie on the couch at my parents' house. I canceled my flight back to New York, and 2 weeks after that, after seeing the right doctor and getting the right blood tests done, 14 of them and 5 blood cultures, I was called into the ER the next day and immediately started on IV antibiotics because they'd found bacteria in my blood. And I was admitted to the hospital the same day, and over the next couple days I went through a slew of tests. CT scans, MRIs, chest x-rays, echocardiograms, and a blood transfusion. And later, with my parents in the room, the doctors told me what happened. The blood infection I had contracted led to endocarditis, which is where the bacteria in my blood vegetated on my heart and ate up two of my heart valves. My heart was failing. So on April 24th, 2015, I underwent emergency open heart surgery where my surgeon worked for 11 hours on a mission to save my life. And luckily, he was successful. I spent a month in the hospital, and during that time, I developed pneumonia. I had to get my right lung drained of a liter of fluid. I practiced how to walk again, and I lost 20 pounds because the IV antibiotics I was on stole my appetite away. My parents were in the hospital with me every day, and I had other visits from family members and friends. And two of my friends graciously offered to fly to New York to take on the monumental task of moving me out of my apartment because we knew I wouldn't be going back there anytime soon. When I was finally discharged and back home at my parents' house, I was like a child again, sleeping, eating when I could, watching TV, seeing visitors when I was able to, and just being cared for by my parents until I was physically strong enough to shower and get around again on my own. It took about 3 months to regain a sense of independence, but surviving and recovering were just the beginning. From my previous way of thinking, I thought I needed to be on a certain time frame to heal and get back to living my life again. I made mistakes because I didn't have the wisdom or guidance from a peer who had gone through something similar. And my acupuncturist scolded me when he realized I was trying to live my life like before and do too much. He said that I'd been given a second life and I needed to take care of it and make my health and my body my priority. But I was resistant, thinking I could still do what I used to. About 7 months after my surgery, I had a breakdown moment while talking to a friend in New York about my ideas for working again. It was the first time I finally realized and acknowledged my new physical capabilities and that I wouldn't be able to go back to living the life I lived before, where I thought I had things figured out, where I felt successful because I could will myself to achieve, accomplish, and hustle to support myself. And there was loss associated with that. That version of me no longer existed, and I grieved, mourning the loss of who I had been. And after that realization, I knew I needed to talk to someone about what I was going through, and through the power of synchronicity, a massage therapist I used to see in New York gave me the contact information for a therapist in San Francisco. And that therapist turned out to be exactly the person I needed at the time. During our sessions together, my therapist and I talked about redefining what success looked like for me now. We talked about authenticity and vulnerability, shedding the armor that I was used to wearing, the expectations I had of myself and of others, and the agenda I imposed upon my body without checking in with it. I also worked through an underlying thought pattern that crept in whenever things didn't work out the way I thought I wanted. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. And I allowed that thought to defeat me, but I also wanted to prove it wrong. I needed to have something to balance out the perceived failure. And because I tied my self-worth to performance, I kept the responsibilities piled on top of my shoulders. But again, at what cost? Which leads me to the first word in my talk's title, body. I learned to listen to and honor my body. In the past, my will always took the lead and dragged my body along behind it. This looked like showing up for work when I was in pain, or going out for drinks after work even though I was exhausted, volunteering at an event when I could have used the time to rest, or putting off going to the doctor because it would mean missing time from work. I would disregard my pain or exhaustion and push through it when I could. And if I took time off to take care of myself, I always ended up feeling guilty, like I was letting myself and others down, or like I was missing out on something. But after my surgery, my body had to take priority because my new 100% was like my old 75 or 80%. And once I accepted that recalibration, I learned to slow down, familiarize myself with my body and its signals, and to check in with it first. I learned to ask the questions, at what cost, and what can I do to take care of myself in this moment? And when the answer comes, I give myself permission to listen to and honor it. It could mean deciding to sleep in instead of going for a morning run. It could mean remembering to take deep breaths, or canceling evening plans after an unexpectedly tiring day at work. My body is so valuable, allowing me to be out in the world to do what I'm meant to do, experience, and learn. And I'm responsible for taking care of it. Listening to and honoring my body is a choice for health and healing, and it protects my energy, which brings me to boundaries. I learned to set and maintain boundaries around my energy and time. Setting boundaries means being aware of what I'm okay with and what my limits are. Maintaining boundaries involves communicating those limits with others and working to honor them. It's part of doing this is listening to my body, and part of it is having realistic expectations of myself. In the past, I used to say yes automatically to any requests made of me, be it social, professional, or nonprofit related. And I would even volunteer myself when it seemed like no one else wanted to. But now, because I have to protect my energy and health more, I make more informed decisions. So before responding to a request or invitation, I spend time checking in with myself. How does this fit into my life? What value might I gain? How does my body or energy feel? What else needs to be considered? And then I make a more informed decision about spending energy and time instead of an automatic response that was based on unrealistic expectations or the need to perform or the fear of disappointing others. In the past, I also thought that asking for help was a weakness. I thought I needed to be able to do everything on my own, to be competent, self-sufficient, strong, and independent. So I didn't ask for help because I didn't want to be seen as less than any of that. And I know now how unhealthy that way of thinking was. And now, because I have more realistic expectations of myself, I'm more comfortable voicing what I can and can't do to manage expectations. And I know that asking for support when I truly need it is not a weakness. It's a responsible choice. I'm honoring my boundaries, and I can still take pride in what I do. I set and maintain boundaries around my energy and time so that I can be fully present with what I'm doing and who I'm with. Instead of being hard on myself, I offer myself empathy for having realistic expectations and knowing my limits, which leads me to benevolence. I learned to be kinder to myself and how that can be an offering of benevolence. We can be so mean to ourselves. The things we tell ourselves, the comparisons we make, the expectations we have of ourselves and think others have of us. It's no wonder why we never feel good enough. People talk about self-love and loving yourself, but how do we do this? I believe in order to truly love ourselves, we first need to learn how to be kind to ourselves. And for me, this means being aware of the things I say to myself about myself, the thoughts that run around in my mind. And for me, these thoughts boil down to I'm not good enough, but for others, it could be I'm bad, or I'm wrong, or I'm a burden, or I'm to fill in the blank. In Kid Power, an organization I work with, we teach about the Kid Power trash can. And it looks like this. You take the trash and throw it in, or it looks like this. Or you can have an imaginary one. And with the Kid Power trash can, I can throw away self-defeating thoughts and replace them with affirming, positive, compassionate statements. So the thought, I'm not good enough, goes in the trash, and I replace it with, I am enough. Or the thought, I'm so stupid for making that mistake, in the trash, and I replace it with, mistakes are part of learning. Or the thought, I can't do what I used to, in my imaginary garbage can, and I say, there's still so much I can do. I am kind to myself so that I can show up authentically as me and define what success looks like and means for me. When we can first practice being kind to ourselves, diminishing self-judgment, self-criticism, it opens us up to offering the same benevolence to others. Then we can better love, support, empathize with, and empower those in our various communities and the communities which we'd like to create. I know that having someone to talk to and guide me, someone who empowered me and empathized with me during this challenging period of my life, helped me to recognize and let go of the old version of me and to embrace and accept the new version of who I am becoming. In the past, I used to feel good about myself because of what I could do, and now I feel more fulfilled because of who I can be. And by learning and practicing these 3 lessons that help me embody my authentic self, I can continually give myself permission to learn and grow, to accept what already is and be grateful for it, while cultivating my desires for what's next and practicing being unattached to outcomes. Living like this empowers me to align with my purpose, to continually heal, and to live in joy and connection with myself, others, and the universe. And so my challenge to you all today is to practice. Practice listening to and honoring your body, setting and maintaining boundaries around your energy and time, and being kinder to yourself. Thank you.
Yeah.
April is the definition of a survivor, and we can all learn from her resiliency. And a reminder to keep making sure that we listen to our bodies to stay healthy. Up next, we have Stephanie Chuang. Stephanie is a Bay Area native and unofficial Warriors coach. Her husband will attest to her screaming at refs both at the games and at home. She was an Emmy-nominated journalist for 10 years before life took a sudden turn 2 years ago. Trauma that led to a life calling. Please welcome Stephanie Chuang.
Hear me okay? Oh, there we go. I know it's the middle of the session, so I just wanted to check with you guys. Are you guys enjoying yourselves this afternoon? We can do a little bit better than that. How are you guys doing right now? There we go. Thank you. So my name is Stephanie. I'm really honored to be here sharing a little bit of my story today. As you've heard from many people today, I believe that everyone has a powerful story to tell, and I'm hoping that hearing a little bit of mine will resonate somehow with you in this room. So I call it surviving to thriving. That's really been my life the last couple of years. Here's to set the scene, if we can get the audio.
NBC Bay Area Stephanie Chuang, who's live in San Francisco. Stephanie, we're talking about a lot of A-list celebrities and sports stars stepping up.
We are. To you both, we're talking Giants, Hollywood, and you'll hear exactly who in a bit. But it was 9 months ago when doctors diagnosed Nina Louie with a rare form of lymphoma. 2 months ago, it spread to her brain. So she needs that help. She's getting it here. San Francisco Google office, just down the street here on the Embarcadero, hosted a drive today. But Nina and thousands like her need a lot more help. As she fights for her life, 32-year-old Nina Louie isn't thinking about herself.
Hi, my name's Debbie.
She's thinking of her 2-year-old son.
Just thinking about with the possibility that I wouldn't be here to touch him or...
So that was my life for 10 years. I was a reporter for NBC most recently, and I got to do stories like that about bone marrow drives for cancer. Well, a little over 3 years later, in December of 2016, life really did take a very sudden turn. I started to feel very fatigued. I had face and neck swelling that was very odd. And then finally a foreign cough that made me finally go to the doctors. And that's when I learned the next day, almost 24 hours after that visit, that I had cancer. I got the call that it was lymphoma, and not only just any lymphoma, it was actually the same kind of cancer, same lymphoma, down to the subtype as the woman I had reported on that you saw in that video clip. So a little instance of life being stranger than fiction. That's what the doctor said to me on the phone. I still remember it. My husband and sister who were out there in the audience were with me when I got the call. And that's the start of what I'd call the breakdown. I was diagnosed with stage 3 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's a blood cancer. So the good news, well, the bad news is aggressive, but the good news is also that it's aggressive because I was able to undergo an aggressive treatment, chemotherapy that almost totaled 700 hours by the time I was done with it. So these are some pictures of the first week of the hospitalization when actually I felt the strongest. I thought, I'm confident, cancer doesn't have me, I can do this. I felt very empowered actually at the time. But after one cycle, this is the snapshot of what my life was like. I lost all my energy, I gained about 10 pounds. I was very antisocial because I didn't want anyone to see me. I was nervous about my mortality and actually just unsure about my future overall. Uh-oh. There you go. So that started the infinite flux, the roller coaster every day. I was at home by myself, so tired from the chemotherapy that was running through my body 24 hours a day. So I had downs and ups constantly. Down was all the symptoms, the nausea, the fatigue, the vomiting. Up, my mom, who was staying over with us to help take care of me, was cooking me home-cooked food. The down, learning of a complication in my diagnosis and then leading me to think all these crazy thoughts of how long am I going to live? I have to point out that the greatest up at the time, one of the greatest ups, was this. My family and friends who started a social campaign, and there's a little funny story here. You might wonder, what's #SpicyStrong? That became my campaign. Well, apparently when I was drugged up for one of the surgeries that first week at the hospital, I apparently told my nurse, this girl's gonna come back as spicy as ever. And I guess I blogged about it. And so my family and friends created the social campaign and actually had t-shirts and everything. So Spicy Strong has stuck with me. And that was amazing. But if I'm being honest, I was still feeling incredibly alone because I was at home by myself as the world was spinning and people were still going to work and living their lives. And here are more of the down and the ups, and I have to say the biggest down was when my hair started to fall. And I know you hear about that, right? You hear about cancer and you hear about chemo, and you think of maybe the bald patient. I knew it was coming, but it was more than a vanity issue for me. The hair was about a loss of control. So that top left picture there, I hope you can see, was the clump of hair that I would actually find on my pillow every morning when the hair really started to go. That was really hard for me to take. So I tried to take some control back. I started to first shave half of my head to be cool. Then I had my mom cut my hair to shoulder length before my husband, who looks too excited there, buzzed it all off. And there you see the aftermath on the ground. And you guys, this really was the one of the lowest points for me, an identity breakdown. I remember one night I woke up to use the restroom and I was sort of groggy, and I walked in and I looked at the mirror and I did this double take because I thought, what is that thing staring back at me? I didn't recognize it. It was bald. And not only had I lost all the hair in my head, I'd lost all my eyebrows and my eyelashes. And trust me when I say you guys need those. Those are defining features, okay? I really did look like an alien, and I thought, I don't recognize this thing. What is this? So began the identity breakdown. I had known myself to be a reporter. I derived a lot of my identity from that. A lot of my extracurriculars were involved with being part of the community in some way. The long hair, the image, everything about what I thought Stephanie was ripped out of me. It felt like it just was ripped from me. And really quickly, I had blogged about it. I know some people do post pictures with their hair gone, I decided not to because I felt this is temporary, this is not my life, and so began digging deep. And I know you all know this, right? The power of perspective. How many of you have watched Inside Out, the movie? Can I get a show of hands? Good, a lot of you, right? It was such a good movie, and the gist of it is it centers on emotions and the roles that they play in our lives as humans. So there's fear, anger, joy, sadness, and disgust. And the point was that before my cancer treatment, anytime I felt something negative, I thought, I don't want to feel angry, I'm not sad, I'm good, I'm not a Debbie Downer. But after going through my treatment, I realized I really needed to embrace every single emotion, even if it felt like it was the wrong thing to do. I had to admit to myself that I was not just sad, I was depressed, that I was actually in fact angry about my situation. And only if I let myself truly explore these emotions did I allow myself to ask, why am I feeling these things? And then I could move on. It was only after that could I move on. And so that was a really big lesson for me. Another way of saying it is, there are parts of you that want the sadness. Find them out and ask them why. Don't resist it if you are feeling something negative. Explore it. Don't suffocate that voice that's inside you because that's what you're really feeling. And learning how to sit still was very difficult for me as well. It's not just sitting on your couch twiddling your thumbs. It's actually digging deep. For me, I cared way too much about what other people thought of me up until that point. Cancer and treatment forced me to sit at home. I had nothing to do. I couldn't run around the way I'd normally done and fill up my calendar. With whom am I going to go to what and feel incredibly productive? I realized no. I was actually doing a lot of things that were urgent and not important. And I wasn't understanding who Stephanie truly was. So chemo and feeling completely shattered, breaking down in that way, actually allowed me to introspect with no distractions, looking inward and not out, and asking, who am I? And understanding that what I like and what I want is enough. It's enough, and to let go of this fear of failure. And so that was a big part of rebuilding myself, leading to what I feel is my total purpose now. I am so grateful to be standing in front of you here today, not just happier and healthier than I've ever been in my life, but I was able to understand when I was the most vulnerable, when I was diagnosed, when my family was diagnosed, we were feeling so anxious and we felt we had no help. So I knew, even when I was so down from all the chemo, that I wanted to help other people. And so I created something called the Patient Story, which I'm working on every day now. What we do is we talk to survivors and we put those stories online to help the newly diagnosed patients and caregivers. And I have to tell you, I've never felt more purpose in my life. Before this, I didn't want to become an entrepreneur. I was too scared of rejection and fear of failure, for sure. Worrying about what other people would think about me if I started something and it only helped a couple dozen people. Now I'm thrilled to think that I'm helping a couple dozen people right now because I know just how much they need that. And I don't want people to feel lonely. I want that human connection in this world. So I'll be happy to talk more about that with any of you later, but now we're mixing it up a little bit, and I'm happy to invite Frances up here as we talk a little bit about my story. So, hello Frances.
Hi Stephanie. Thank you again. So that was a very powerful story. And this is really cool. Some of you may know this, that Stephanie is an Emmy-nominated journalist. Yeah. I interviewed an Emmy-nominated journalist. How cool is that? So, Stephanie, before we go in, tell me a role model. Who would be someone that you consider a powerful role model in your life?
Well, I guess you answered for me. That would be Papa Chuang, my dad. Looking very slick, that's just how he is. My dad taught me when I was young, because he's a business guy, he said, I don't really care that much about the degree from which, what school people got their degree from. I care about something called AA, which represents Alcoholics Anonymous. That sounds a little weird, but his point was that in Alcoholics Anonymous, people will stand up, say their name, and then acknowledge what they're working on. And that's a very powerful tool to have as a person. And so the ability to reflect and be aware. So, that was one of the guiding principles for me in terms of trying to grow up and always self-reflect, that's really powerful. And and never to lose that. But I do want to give a shout out to my mom too, because she's the quintessential, you know, devotee of everybody else, just always serving others, and yeah, I wouldn't be here and the way that I am without her. So I had to give I had to. It's mom, you know.
Don't you have someone else in the audience here?
I do.
Shout out to?
My sister.
Can you stand up, please?
My sister's right there. She's in the back. She's just waving. My sister Christina. She was amazing during my treatment, as was my husband, Tim, who's right here. Oh, recording very dutifully, thank you. They were instrumental in getting me through my treatment.
Powerful. So, now you talked a little bit about your hair loss, right? And I saw that when I heard about it, or when I heard it also from you. And here it is, some of it. That seemed to be an embodiment of fear. Tell me what you learned about fear in this experience.
Oh my gosh, we don't have enough time. First of all, you can see in that left picture, I was swollen still because I hadn't gotten my treatment. So that was me. I was Facebooking, doing the Facebook Live. I'd never done it before, but I thought that I could take control of the situation, but I was in fact scared out of my mind. I remember driving we actually went to my husband's hair guy. We thought he'll eventually be able to deal with my short hair. And I felt so unsure about where my future was going to be. At that point, I hadn't even started treatment yet. Like, the chemo hadn't even begun. I was nervous about whether I would survive it, how it would be. But the hair was just a physical manifestation of sickness. So fear was fear of not knowing, fear of complete and utter lack of control. And for a control freak my whole life, that was really hard.
Yeah. I see it. And you talked a little bit about going through chemotherapy and what it meant, but can you walk through us, because seeing what the results are a bit, actually walking through what it was like from just what did it go through from when you woke up and then when you went to sleep, what was that like?
I'll try to summarize this really quickly. Oh yeah, so
what are we looking at?
Well, that top left picture is after I got my port surgery. So the chemo, because the cancer was really aggressive, the chemo had to be very aggressive, which is why it was 6 cycles, and each cycle was 24 hours of continuous infusion for almost a week. You can't do that through the veins. So they either put a PICC line in, or they actually cut you open here and put a little device under your skin so that they can just poke it to do blood draws and to put the chemotherapy directly into your system. So that was the surgery from that. I was, privileged enough to do my treatment as an outpatient, meaning I lived close enough to the hospital where I was able to go to the clinic just to get my chemo bag put in. And I would wear this like purse, a little black purse that was really a pump, a chemo pump. And it was constantly pumping chemo inside me. So I would wake up with that. I actually still can hear the sound of the whirring of the machine. It's a little haunting. And in hindsight, I wish I'd been more active, but I was so beaten down physically by the treatment that I would wake up in the morning and just drag myself literally to everything that I needed to do. And one quick note, sometimes expending energy leads to more energy is what I learned. So I was so antisocial and I didn't want to see people. Sometimes I didn't even want to see my husband or my mom because I just wanted to be by myself and shut everyone out and just be in my world where I could deal with everything. But when I would go down to eat meals with them, I found myself leaving incredibly energized. So that was part of the journey.
And what was the significance of, because I saw this all over the internet, like when I was following you on social media, this was just everywhere. You got all kinds of age groups here, you got all demographics. Tell me a bit about this.
Yeah, so this is part of that Spicy Strong campaign I told you about. My cousins actually reached out, I don't know how, and got people to tell me or tell them if they wanted to buy a shirt and wristband, and then they sent me these photos. But what's incredible is sometimes you don't realize the impact you've had on people until something like this happens. And you also understand the real love that people have. A lot of my defense mechanisms I had with people maybe I hadn't seen in a while, maybe I would have seen them out and about on the street and pretended not to see them. I realized that actually they do care, and at the very basic level, we really do care about each other. We want each other to succeed. So there were people I hadn't seen in 20 years who were part of this campaign that That guy right there with the muscles was a journalism professor I hadn't spoken to in 15 years. So he was part of it, and then my cousins and old coworkers from my old TV stations. It was something else. Yeah, it was incredibly energizing, and I'm forever grateful for that support.
I got one by the way.
Okay, cool, thanks. So,
Oh, you do? Oh, I did. Oh, nice.
Cool.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. See, that's incredible.
awesome. This is also an interesting note. Stephanie Lynn up here is a 2015 Miss Asian America.
Yeah, that's right.
It's pretty cool. Now that you've recovered,
Yes.
and now that you are restarting your life again, tell me about purpose.
Purpose. In 40 seconds, purpose. Purpose for me was being able to experience that trauma, and I know we all go through our own versions of it, varying degrees of it. It doesn't have to be something medical, it can be something just extremely personal to you. But in those moments, if you can truly dig down, accept the bad with the good, I think you then see what your purpose can be, because it was only after I broke down through that entire process that was incredibly difficult, where I found that I don't care if I fail in the eyes of other people. Helping other people I know who are feeling as vulnerable and anxious as I was feeling before, just helping those people is enough to drive me every single day, no matter how scared I am of being my own boss, of moving the needle enough to make a difference. I feel so encouraged and motivated and inspired just to be able to do that. So that, to me, is what purpose is finding that which drives you every day.
Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you guys.
We can all agree that cancer sucks, but Stephanie's a trooper, and she's all the stronger from defeating it. These journeys to self-healing were not easy to share, but our speakers are very brave to share them with all of us. We're going to have our final intermission next, and we're coming up on our last opportunity to enter the raffle, so make sure you guys get some tickets. Thank you to Numi Tea for the lovely gifts for our guests, and also for the beautiful tea set that's being raffled off today. In addition, some of the other raffle prizes include a TV donated by Vince Aguilar, Monster Cable products, a lovely gift basket from Forever Beaumont, a Snowgrip gift certificate, a Callan SF gift certificate, and tickets to the Miss Asian Gold pageant for 2018. Don't forget to grab a bite from our sponsor, Jasmine Blossom, providing delicious Thai food, or some fresh leaf stone from our dessert sponsor, Snow Crave. We'll see you in 15 minutes.